Hello lovely people, this week I'm coming at you with the Big Books tag.
Sophie Vlogs.
I saw the video on Jasmine Reed's channel. I will leave a link to her video down below along with the original tag creator. Essentially, this tag is all about reading big books and the big books you've read and the big books you're gonna read. And I'm sort of taking this current moment to read lots of my bigger books just because, like, when else am I gonna do it? So this tag essentially means that you talk about the 5 biggest books you've read and then some of the biggest books on your to-read pile. So I would like to give, before I dive into my 5 biggest books, I would like to give an honourable mentions to the entire A Song of Fire, Ice and Fire series. If I was doing this properly, I think 4 of my top 5 biggest books that I've read are from that series, but that is such a well-known series that I think that that answer will be for a lot of people, so I thought I would just give a little honourable mention, but then actually talk about other books, just for some variety. So working my way up to my biggest book. I don't have all of these books with me anymore because I tend to give away books if I'm not going to reread them, so I'll just show you the ones I've got. My 5th biggest book I've read was The Story, Love, Loss and the Lives of Women, 100 Great Short Stories, which was edited by Victoria Hislop. This came in at about 760 pages, I think. I didn't write the page count down for this one, but I did for the rest of them. I'm sorry, pass Sophie, you're a shambles. Essentially, this is what it says on the tin. This was 100 short stories, and my thing is that I always have mixed feelings about short story collections. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, as I do a lot of short story collections, because there were 100 of them. Some of them I found really impactful, and some of them have really stayed with me and introduced me to authors that I would like to go forward and read a lot more of. Others of them I've already forgotten. Some of them I didn't like, that sort of thing. Like, when you have such a giant collection of short stories, it's always going to be a bit of a mixed bag. But on the whole, it was a great way of introducing me to a lot more women writers that I didn't already know, and has given me ones to keep my eye out for, so that's really good. The 4th largest book I've read is The Faerie Queene by Edmund, Spenser. This was a read and a half. This comes in at 896 pages, so the whole thing is in verse. Like a lot of epic poems, it's split into books. Different books focus on sort of like different adventures. It's Elizabethan, so but it's very much concerned with like knights and fairies and travelling around fairyland. There's a lot of like knights who are on quests or who are trying to save damsels and stuff like that. So it's drawing on an older medieval tradition than like the Elizabethan time that it was written in. But I'm really glad that I read this. It's a bit of an achievement that I read this because I read it all aloud and it took me over a year. So this was one that was a big book that I really took my time with, but I'm really glad that I did. If you're someone who's into epic poetry, I think it is a really interesting epic poem to read. It's not my favourite, but I would dip into passages again rather than read the whole thing again, I think. Coming in at 3rd place, I have Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. This comes in at 964 pages, and for a while this was like, when people are like, what's the biggest book you've ever read? I'd be like, Anna Karenina. So this is a classic of Russian literature. This follows more characters than just Anna Karenina. It does Tolstoy's usual thing where you have like a number of different people and plot lines all happening at the same time, but largely we're following Anna's sort of like breaking societal conventions, having this love affair, and then also like hurtling towards tragedy somewhat. With a bunch of other stuff happening in this. I'm really glad I read this. This took me about 3 months to read, and I read it immediately upon finishing university. I read this. And it was certainly an achievement that I wanted to do, and I'm really glad I did, but I also actually really enjoyed this. I have yet to tackle War and Peace, but I did really enjoy the BBC miniseries adaptation, so I keep telling myself that one day maybe I'll go back into Tolstoy, but I haven't done it yet. My 2nd largest book is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which comes in at 1,006 pages. I actually loved this book, but I read it on my Kindle, which is why I can't show it to you. It's set during the Napoleonic Wars, and it's sort of, it's I really don't know. I always fumble describing it. It is the society of that time. It is very much reads a lot like a book of that time. However, the 2 main characters are magicians who are trying to revolutionize English magic. And there are fae in it, and I love how fae are portrayed in this. They're very much like the type of fae that you would make bargains with that you don't always understand the full repercussions of. and also, like, the whole portrayal of Fae I absolutely adore. I also actually really enjoyed the style of it and the way that, like, prophecy is interwoven and stuff like this. I don't know, it was such a unique thing. I've never really read anything else like it, and if anyone has any recommendations for anything else like it, that would be really great, because I had such a good time reading it and I really enjoyed it, and it didn't feel as long as it was when I was reading it, even though I know that it was. And finally, the biggest book that I have ever read is another one that I read on my Kindle because I knew it was horrendously big, so I thought, let's read it on Kindle, not by trying to hold the book up. That's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, which is 1,276 pages. I read this very recently when I went to Paris in autumn because I wanted to read something French while I was there. I had the best time reading it. It is the largest book I've ever read. As opposed to this, which took me 3 months, I'm pretty sure I read it in about a week, or a week and a half to 2 weeks max, which is wild, but it is such a fun, like, adventure book. We follow our main character Edmund, who is he's in love with this girl, he's about to get married, and then he gets framed for a crime that he didn't commit. He gets sent to this prison. He makes a prison break, he finds this treasure, this buried treasure, and then he reinvents himself as the Count of Monte Cristo, and he sets out to seek revenge and retribution against those who essentially ruined his life. I think it is, for such a long book, I absolutely did not feel like it dragged. It was like, that whole plot summary I gave you, that's your setup. And, like, that's not spoilers, that's, like, the setup of the book. But I just felt like it was like, betrayal, imprisonment, prison escape, treasure, and then it's like, oh, now we've got this whole complicated revenge plot that is, like, also causing you to question both the, like, him, but then also, like, other people, and, like, the nature of people, and revenge, and blah, 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 and I had the most fantastic time reading it. It is one of my favourite classics, I think, and I absolutely adored it. So, I have to say, from these top 5 biggest books I've read, I would say I could probably take or leave the story, but all the rest of them I'm really glad that I read. They've all been slightly missions, but, like, I've enjoyed that. I also wanted to give a shout out to one that didn't quite make the list, but one that I love, and that's William Morris' A Life for Our Time by Fiona McCarthy, which comes in at 780 pages, which was just ever so slightly shorter than the story. The story was like 790, I think. I didn't write that one down because I'm a fool. Going on to the biggest books on my TBR. I think normally people just mention like 1 or 2. I had like a couple that I wanted to talk about. So, first of all, probably the biggest book that is actually on my TBR is on my Kindle, and that's Les Mis, because that is a horrendously long beast of a book, and I keep really wanting to read it, but also being really intimidated not reading it. So, like, one day I'm going to get to that. It's not my priority right now, but it is on the TBR pile. Technically, I think the biggest book that I have in my physical TBR pile is The Penguin Complete Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, because this clocks in at about 1,122 pages. However, this is a compilation of all of the Sherlock Holmes stories, so I felt like maybe that was potentially slightly cheating. So I also wanted to mention what I think are the 3 other physical biggest books. One of them is Ida, A Sword Among Lions by Paula J. Giddings, which comes in at 800 pages. I do physically have this one, but it's in the other room, so I haven't got it. But it's a biography of Ida B. Wells. I think it's going to be really great and interesting. I can't wait to read it. Another one is A Wise Man's Fear, which is the second book in the Name of the Wind series by Patrick Rothfuss. And then the other one I wanted to mention is The Last Pre-Raphaelite, Edward Burne-Jones and the Victorian Imagination by Fiona McCarthy, aforementioned, who I think is great. This one technically only comes in about 600 pages, but because it is so physically big, those pages have like more information on them than your normal sized book would. So I think if you were to scale this down and make it smaller, it would have more pages. But it's a wonderful book, and I can't wait to read it. And then finally, with the note we're going to end on, is just the book that I am currently reading, because I am currently reading my bigger books, and that's Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This was lent to me by a lovely friend. It is really taking my mind off things. I'm really enjoying it. It's about 650 pages, but I am 100 pages from the end and having, quite frankly, a brilliant time immersing myself in Tudor England, so that's been great. Those are all the big books I wanted to talk about. I wasn't sure about tagging people because I didn't really know who is into big, so I'm not going to tag anyone just because I don't know who likes to read big books or not. But if you find this interesting, please do consider yourself tagged, and I would like to see your video when it is posted. Yes. Otherwise, that's everything from me for this week, and I will see you next time for something different.